So why aren't there more negative reviews in hi-fi? You see that question come up quite regularly when people discuss hi-fi reviewing or are critical of hi-fi reviewing. And maybe you've been asking yourself this question too. So I figured I should address it from my perspective. First of all, there are negative reviews. Almost every review contains some element of criticism, at least the good reviews from reputable sources. It's just that it takes a little bit of reading comprehension to to find that, and apparently for some people that's too much to ask. Um, but I think what people are saying is that there ought to be as many reviews that are net negative as there are reviews that are net positive, thinking that that is the only way there's going to be a sort of balance and equilibrium. I think that take is very stupid. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. That is that is a stupid position. That is a position you haven't thought through if you hold it. And if I'm stepping on toes here, let me explain it a little bit. Uh, because if you're thinking it has to be 50-50, you're placing that cutoff arbitrarily. You're thinking of it as neutral, or people are thinking of that as neutral. But how is it any more fair to say that half of reviews need to be net negative versus saying it has to be 45% or 30% or 5%? It is an arbitrary cutoff that has no bearing on the actual performance of the product. And by placing an arbitrary cutoff like this, I think you're being less objective, not more. And doing so can also lead a reviewer to like seek a way to formulate criticism when it's not justified, just because they feel they have to, or to give undue emphasis to some very slight disadvantage or drawback. And of course, that's not fair if it's an overwhelmingly positive experience. But okay, maybe the argument isn't that. Maybe the argument is that surely some products in any given category are better than others. And well, yes and no. Because better at what? And better for whom? To arrange products on this singular axis from worst to best is a destructive simplification masquerading as fact. And I think most, not all, but most hi-fi products are kind of good or better. So any arbitrary cutoff point is arbitrary. Some are more universally better than others, but some are maybe fantastic for a highly specific use or user, uh, and maybe mediocre outside of that. But how do you rank them for any individual user? Because like you're one person. How do you how should I tell you which one is better for you? Which I would be doing if I say something is bad. Now, I get that as consumers, we might be choosing between any number of options. And for us, or for me as a consumer, for you as a consumer, there's probably one product that is the best. And wouldn't it be nice if someone could just tell you which one that is, right? I think that's where this is coming from, that uh, if something is best, then surely something has to be best, then surely something is worst. And again, that's too simple of an answer to a complex issue. But just as whatever you might end up choosing might not be the best for everyone else, a reviewer can't just review for themselves, because that's an audience of one. That's not what we're doing. And thus, there's no sort of defensible way to sort everything on a single vector. Now, many reviewers do compare things and pick winners, but often on individual, fairly narrow parameters. Speaker A might reproduce piano more realistically than speaker B, but speaker B has more dynamic punch in the bass. Streamer A might have a better app, but streamer B has a bigger display. And which ones of these are the winners? It's for you to decide. Like, the reviewer is not like a medieval priest dictating what is right and wrong in the world. And there's another problem with saying something is bad, something I haven't heard articulated very well in the discourse around reviewing. And I've said this before about hi-fi shows. Like, You go into a room at a hi-fi show, and if it sounds good, you know those things can sound good. If it sounds bad, they might still have the potential to sound good. They just didn't in that room for whatever reason. So to say in a review that something is bad is to say that it is sort of irredeemably bad. It is to declare that there's no way it's good. And I mean, you might arrive at a similar conclusion. You might, not get the performance out of a product that you're seeking and expecting. But then a good reviewer would go through what they did to try to amend that, how they tried to get around it, how did they try to squeeze the performance out of the product that they thought it should have, and sort of document that experience. And then it's up to the reader or viewer to decide if they made some mistake in the process, if they overlooked something, or if their conclusions are disqualifying about the product, or whatever else. But it takes a lot of certainty to just declare that something is bad. If something sounds good, well, or fantastic even if under very specific circumstances, then at least it has that potential, and you can confidently relay that to the reader or viewer. But the inverse isn't necessarily true. And when talking about hi-fi reviews, it's also useful to consider who reviews are for, which I talked about in another video in this series, the second one, I think. And not that you need to watch them in order. Do it whatever order. Just watch one. Just watch them all. Mix it up, whatever. But one thing I didn't fully address in that video is that most hi-fi publications are enthusiast outlets. And what I mean by that is, for example, Stereophile that I write for is an enthusiast magazine. Us writers are hi-fi enthusiasts. We write enthusiastically. All of this means that we, at least for the most part, seek a sort of glass half full perspective to find where and how a product will perform its best. And we do this for the enthusiast reader who wants to read enthusiastically, who is enthusiastic about the hobby, who's not a naysayer about the hobby necessarily, because then why would you subscribe to a Stereophile magazine? This doesn't preclude us from criticizing things. I want to make that very clear. And that will be obvious to anyone reading the magazine and actually having that at least rudimentary reading comprehension. We do criticize all the time. But the enthusiast perspective is fundamentally different than the way like an investigative reporter would look at government contracts or whatever. The investigative reporter create their content by exposing foul play and injustice and immoral behavior and that type of thing. That is the point. That is the content. And the Enthusiast magazine is the inverse of that. We seek things to celebrate instead. Now, I'm not saying seeking out negatives is inherently bad and sort of forbidden as an endeavor. I think there's a lot of opportunity to defend consumer rights and interests in this hobby. And some people do, and a couple even do it in a good way. But I just don't think I enjoy like accusation and suspicion and reveling in wrongdoing is as enjoyable as exaltation and, well, enthusiasm. Now, sometimes, of course, you do get something in that you are excited to review because we have a say in what we review, and we do want to spend our time with things we like, which also biases content towards good products that get good reviews. Because if we suspect that something is kind of shitty, we're not going to ask to spend a month or 3 with that piece of equipment, because why would you do that to yourself, right? But sometimes things are underwhelming and disappointing in various ways. And we do write about that a lot. Sometimes stuff gets sent back because it's like not working or too shitty. But anything above that level, we tend to write about it. Through the decades of reading Stereophile, I've seen countless examples of like software anomalies or build quality issues or just performance inconsistency or weaknesses that have been called out very publicly in the magazine. Sometimes that leads to the manufacturer sending a second unit, and sometimes that amends the problem, but then you have revealed a sort of quality control issue. And sometimes it doesn't amend the issue, and that's bad. And sometimes that results in the product actually being upgraded to like a Mark II. And sometimes even products have been discontinued because of weaknesses or issues revealed in reviews. But in the majority of cases, a hi-fi product is simply an ambitious design by enthusiastic designers uh, that shows a specific set of priorities and compromises. Every product has priorities and compromises. And it's us reviewers' job to shine a light on that and tell you what they are. And often the compromises are so well chosen and subtle that they're almost imperceptible. Like there's not a lot of it there. So you end up instead focusing on what is more prominently there, and that is usually the good stuff. So you get a positive review, an enthusiastic review. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of negative reviews, at least not net negative. I think there is criticism in most reviews. It's just that you have to apply a little bit of brain work and interpretation yourself. I hope this was interesting. Like, subscribe, or don't, whatever. Live your own life. Thanks for watching anyway. See you in the next one.